The stars looked peaceful from the window of the Galactic Summit Station. But inside the station, peace was just a dream. Tension filled the halls, and every species had their guards up. The most powerful races in the galaxy had gathered to talk. Peace. But nobody trusted each other. Captain Ryan Cole stood quietly in the corner of the security wing. He was a tall, serious man with sharp eyes and a calm voice. He had fought in 3 wars and guarded many VIPs. But this time, his mission was different. He was ordered to protect Lady Gira, the alien diplomat from the Alvarez Empire, her. People were famous for their beauty, intelligence, and strict rules. They never touched outsiders, never showed emotion, and never asked for help. Ryan didn't know why they needed a human bodyguard. But he didn't ask questions when Gira entered the room. The air changed. She walked with grace, her long silver robes flowing like water. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, and her golden eyes scanned the room coldly. Everyone stared, but she ignored them. Ryan stepped forward and gave a respectful nod. "Captain Ryan Cole." "Assigned to your protection," he said. Gira looked at him without blinking. "I did not request you," she replied softly, "but I will not stop you." It wasn't a warm welcome. But Ryan was used to that. He followed her silently as she moved through the station. Meeting other leaders, he noticed how the other diplomats whispered behind her back. They didn't trust her, and they feared what she might be hiding. The next day, the peace conference began. Gira sat in a high seat, silent and unreadable. Ryan stood behind her, watching every door, every guard, every shadow. Then, it happened. A low hum echoed through the room, too soft for most ears. Ryan turned just in time to see a figure raise a weapon from the balcony, without thinking. He threw himself in front of Gira. Boom! A blast of red energy hit his side, sending him to the ground. He gasped as pain shot through his body, but he didn't move away. His only thought was to protect her. Guards rushed in. The attacker vanished. And alarm screamed through the station amid the chaos. Gira knelt beside Ryan, her face pale with shock. "You were injured," she whispered. Ryan gave a weak smile, "Just a scratch." He lied, coughing blood. For the first time, Gira reached out and touched him. Her soft hand held his bloody one. It was something no Alvarez ever did in public. The cameras caught everything. The diplomat who never touched anyone, holding a human's hand like he was more than just a soldier. Her aides tried to stop her, whispering, "My lady, protocol." But she didn't let go. "Silence," she said firmly. "He protected me." Ryan's vision blurred as he looked up at her. "Why are you holding my hand?" he asked weakly. Gira didn't answer, but her golden eyes were not cold anymore. Later, when Ryan was taken to the medical wing, people started to talk. Some said it was just a political act. Others said it was something more, but no one could deny what they saw. A human had bled for an alien who didn't even want a guard. And that alien had broken one of her deepest cultural laws for him. In his hospital bed, Ryan lay still. Wires and alien devices around him. Gira came again, alone. This time, she looked at the machines keeping him alive, then sat beside him. She didn't speak, didn't move. Just watched him quietly. One of her aides entered, shocked. "My lady, this is not safe." "Your image," Gira turned to her, eyes burning. "Then let my image burn," she whispered. Outside the room, 2 species prepared for war, blaming each other for the attack. But inside that room, a human and an alien had started something no treaty ever could. Not with words, not with politics, but with blood. And a broken rule. Captain Ryan Cole opened his eyes slowly. The ceiling above him was made of glowing crystal, not metal. The air smelled different, cleaner, lighter, almost sweet. He tried to sit up, but a soft pressure held him down. "You are not ready to move," said a calm voice beside him. Ryan turned his head, surprised to see Lady Jira sitting. Close, her golden eyes watched him quietly. She was not wearing her usual official robes. She looked simpler now, more human. Her long silver hair was tied back, and her hands were folded in her lap. "Where am I?" Ryan asked, voice dry and weak. "You are in my ship, in the healing chamber," Jira replied. "I brought you here after the attack." Ryan blinked, trying to remember. He remembered the blast, the pain, and her hand in his. He didn't expect her to stay by his side. "You stayed?" he asked, almost in disbelief. Jira nodded. "Yes, I stayed." She reached forward and touched the small panel beside the bed. A soft hum started again as the chamber continued healing his wounds. Her people had the best medical technology, but they rarely used it on outsiders. "You didn't have to do this," Ryan said. "I was just doing my job." Jira looked away for a moment, then back at him. "There are many guards who would not have done what you did. You threw yourself into death without hesitation. That is not just duty." Ryan didn't answer. He didn't know what it was either, but something about Jira made him act without thinking. She looked so alone, so controlled, like she carried the weight of a planet on her shoulders. After a moment, Jira stood up. "You will rest now," she said. "You are safe here." As she walked out, Ryan watched her carefully for the first time. He saw something behind her eyes, something hidden, something broken. Later that day, Ryan was moved to a private room on the ship. Alien machines hovered around him, checking his body. A gentle voice gave updates in both Alvarez and English. Jira entered again, holding a silver box in her hands. "I brought this," she said. Offering it to him, Ryan opened the box and found human food inside real food. Not synth paste. It was a small but clear sign. She had gone out of her way to get something from Earth. He smiled, didn't think aliens cared about Earth snacks. "I asked your database," she said softly. "You enjoy this flavor, called chocolate chip cookie." He chuckled and took a bite. "You're full of surprises." Lady Jira, her eyes met his, more openly now. "You may call me Jira when we are alone." Ryan blinked, unsure if he heard her right. That level of informality was never allowed between her kind and humans, but she seemed serious. Jira sat across from him, her tone changing. "Do you know why the others fear me?" she asked. Ryan nodded slowly. "They think you're hiding something." She looked away again. Silent. "They are right," she whispered. "I hide my past. I hide what I feel." Ryan leaned forward, surprised. "Why tell me this?" "Because," she said quietly, "I trust you." It was a heavy word, especially coming from her. Jira continued. "I lost someone long ago, a friend, a protector, someone who believed in peace. When you stood in front of me, I saw him in your eyes." Ryan listened, the air between them growing still. No royal walls, no political masks, just two souls speaking honestly. Before he could respond, the door opened. A tall Alvarez male stepped in with a stern face. "Lady Jira, your presence is required." Jira stood up quickly, her expression returning to normal. She nodded and walked toward the door, but paused. Turning to Ryan, she said, "You are not just a bodyguard anymore." Then she was gone, leaving him with questions. What did she mean by that? Why was she telling him these things? And what would it cost her? Later that night, a secret meeting was held in the council chamber. The alien leaders demanded Jira dismiss her human guard. They said he was a distraction, a threat to diplomacy. But Jira stood before them and said one word. "No." Gasps filled the room. "You are breaking protocol." One shouted. "You risk war." Said another, but Jira remained calm. "I am not breaking peace," she said. "I am protecting it. I will keep him by my side, far away." Ryan sat in his room, unaware of what she had just done. unaware that Jira had just risked everything for him. Her title, her alliances, even her future. All because one human bled for her, and because, behind her golden eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. The Galactic Summit continued as planned, but nothing felt normal anymore. The halls were filled with whispers, eyes watching every move Jira made. And Ryan could feel the tension building. He had recovered enough to walk again, Jira allowed him to resume his post as her personal bodyguard. But now, people treated him differently. Some nodded with respect. Others looked at him with anger or fear. "They don't like me standing this close to you," he said one evening. As they walked toward the main conference hall, Jira replied without turning her head. "They do not like what they cannot control." Ryan smirked, but he stayed alert. Every step he took, every glance he caught, it all told him something was wrong. Someone was planning something again. He had that old battlefield feeling in his gut. He began doing what he did best. Watching, listening, moving through places no one paid attention to. He walked through servant tunnels, checked delivery routes, and read guard rotations. Then he found it. In the kitchen corridor, he spotted a small device attached under a serving tray. It looked like a translator, except it wasn't. It was a signal jammer, meant to confuse defense systems. Whoever placed it there was planning another attack. Ryan pulled it off and took it to Zyra. She studied it with a sharp gaze. "This is Alvarez's technology," she whispered. "Only someone from my own staff could have planted it." Ryan felt a chill down his spine. "Someone close to you wants you dead." Yara nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "And they want you blamed for it." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He sat near Jira's quarters, scanning messages on a secured tablet. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. A coded message sent from inside the shiphan, ordered to poison Jira's next meal. The message was signed by someone on her personal guard team. Without wasting time, Ryan ran toward the ship's dining area. The servers were already preparing food, and Zyra was expected to eat soon. He pushed through them, grabbing a cup just as it was being placed on her tray. "What are you doing?" One of the staff shouted. Ryan didn't answer. He looked at the cup, then brought it to his lips and drank. Seconds later, he dropped the cup. His hands shook, and a burning pain filled his chest. He fell to one knee, then hit the floor hard. The staff panicked, and alarms were triggered. Jira rushed in, eyes wide with shock, when she saw Ryan on the ground. Her voice broke. "No, not again," she whispered, dropping beside him. "He drank from my cup," she said to the guards. "Get the healer, now." As the medical team lifted Ryan, Skira held his hand once more. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with fury. She stood and turned toward the staff. "Seal the room," she ordered. "Everyone stays until I find the traitor." Ryan woke up in the healing chamber again, weaker this time. His body trembled, but he was alive. Jira was there again, seated quietly beside him. Her robe was wrinkled, her hair loose. She hadn't slept. "You really like saving my life," he joked weakly. Jira didn't smile. "I do not like watching you almost die," she said. "This is the second time." Ryan took a deep breath. "You found the one. Who did it?" She nodded. "One of my own. He was promised power by a rival empire. He said killing me and blaming you would end our alliance." Ryan blinked slowly. "And you still trust anyone after that?" Jira looked at him quietly. "I trust very few," she said. "But you?" "I would trust with my life." She touched a symbol on her wrist, and a small light appeared. "Your loyalty has been entered into our records," she said. "You are no longer just my bodyguard." Ryan frowned. "What am I now?" Jira paused. "In our culture, this would be called a life-bound protector. Very rare," she added. "Usually only chosen by royal family. Ryan's eyes widened. Are you saying I've been adopted into your royal security force? No, she said quietly. I'm saying I chose you. The meaning hung in the air. Even without knowing all the alien traditions, Ryan understood she had risked her reputation, her safety, and now her heart. He reached out weakly and placed his hand on hers. I won't let them hurt you again, he said. No matter what it takes, she squeezed his hand gently. And I will not let you face them alone. Outside the chamber, the galaxy still argued over treaties, politics, and blame. But inside, a human and an alien had formed something stronger than any document. A bond made of blood, trust, and silent promises, and enemies were still watching, waiting. Because they knew what was coming next, Jira was no longer just a diplomat, and Ryan was no longer just a soldier. Together, they were something dangerous, something powerful. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Days passed, but the memory of the poisoning still lived in Ryan's body, though he could stand and walk. His strength hadn't fully returned. Jira stayed close, watching him carefully. Always quiet, always calm, but something had changed between them. They didn't need to speak much anymore. They understood each other with just a look, a silent language built on near-death moments. One night, as the stars drifted outside the window of her ship, Jira invited Ryan to the upper observatory. It was quiet. There were no guards, no advisors, no cameras, just the endless sky. I come here when I feel heavy, she said, standing near the glass wall. Ryan leaned against the railing, still a little tired. You carry a lot, he replied. You lead your people, walk among enemies, and now? You deal with someone trying to kill you. Jira turned to him slowly, her voice softer than usual. It is not the weight that breaks me, she said. It is the silence. Ryan didn't speak right away. Then he nodded. I know that silence, he said. I had it after my last battle. I came back to Earth, but I didn't feel home. Gira stepped closer. We are not so different, she whispered. Different bodies. Different worlds, but same wounds. She took something from her. Robe a small silver disc. She held it out to him. This is called a soul flare. She said, in my culture, it is shared only once in a lifetime. Ryan looked at it carefully. What does it mean? It means I give a part of my name. To you, Jira said, not as ruler, not as diplomat, but as something more. Ryan hesitated. I don't want to get you in trouble. Jira shook her head. You already have, she said, smiling softly. Then she added, but I do not care. Ryan took the flare, and it glowed gently in his hand. He felt a warmth spread through his chestnut pane. Not heat, but something calm. The flare dimmed and faded into his skin. Jira stepped back, eyes locked on his. Our council will not understand this, she said. They will say, I've bonded with a human. Is that bad? Ryan asked. It is forbidden. She answered, because it changes everything. The next day, the council summoned her. Jira stood before them, her chin high, her eyes unshaken. You performed the soul flare ritual with a human. 1. Elda accused, you have broken the ancient vow of separation. Jira didn't deny it. I did, she said firmly, and I will not take it back. They threatened exile, disgrace, and loss of her authority, but she stayed calm. I do not regret protecting someone who saved my life twice, she said, and I do not regret honoring him with what he earned. Behind the sealed doors, Ryan listened from a quiet corner. He could hear the shouting, the fear, and the anger. And he knew this was all because of him. That evening, Jira returned to her chambers. Quiet and thoughtful, Ryan stood when she entered. They gave you a choice, didn't they? He asked. She nodded. Yes, they want you to give me up. He said. Jira turned to face him. I said no. Ryan's chest tightened. You risk everything for me. Jira stepped close. her voice low. "I do not care about titles." She said, "I care about truth, and I know you are the only one who has never lied to me." Ryan reached out and touched her hand gently. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned her forehead against his, an old Alvarez gesture of deep connection. It was meant only for bonded souls. In that quiet moment, no words were spoken, but something deeper than words passed between them. Ryan whispered, "What are we now?" Jira replied, "We are what the stars call rare." Outside their ship, the galaxy spun as always, but in the shadows of the summit, something else was moving. A new plot had begun, more dangerous than before. This time, the goal was not just to kill Gira. This time, the enemy wanted to destroy everything she stood for, and they had already sent someone to do it. Back in the observatory, Ryan and Gira stood side by side again. She looked out at the stars, her voice strong. "They will come for us again." Ryan placed his hand on his side, where he had been shot before. "Then let them come," he said. "But they won't take you while I'm still breathing," Gira nodded together, she said, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter. They had broken protocol, crossed lines, and risked everything. But they were no longer afraid, because the bond they now shared, unspoken and unbreakable, was stronger than fear, stronger than tradition, stronger than war. The Galactic Peace Treaty was in danger. Rumors moved faster than ships, and one rumor burned across every star system. The Alvarez Diplomat has bonded with a human. Every council chamber echoed with disbelief. Old enemies whispered that the bond was a trick. Allies of Gira questioned her loyalty. Her own people began to call her a traitor. Gira stood before the Galactic High Council once more. Her face was calm, but her heart beat hard inside her chest. She had always followed the rules, honored every law, but now they demanded she undo what could not be undone. "You must remove the human from your service," said the council speaker. "Deny the bond and restore the order." Gira looked up slowly. "Order built on fear is not peace," she said. "I will not cast him aside." Whispers spread through the hall like fire. One of the elders stood up in anger. "Then you stand alone," he said. "You lose our support." Gira nodded. "So be it." Back on the ship, Ryan sat in the shadows of the training deck. He had heard what happened. Every word from that chamber was broadcast across half the galaxy. He expected Gira to be angry or sad when she returned, but she wasn't. She walked into the room with her head high and her voice steady. "They will no longer stand with me," she said, "but I still stand." Ryan looked up, surprised by her strength. "You gave up everything," he said quietly. Gira moved closer. "No," she whispered. "I gave up nothing that mattered. Titles fade," she said, placing her hand on his chest. "But this, what we share, is real." Ryan reached up and held her hand. He didn't need to say anything. She already knew. Later that day, the Earth's delegation requested a private meeting. Ryan joined Gira in the small room where 3 human diplomats waited. They were not angry, but they were afraid. "Gira," said the lead negotiator, "you must understand. Your choice puts Earth in a difficult position. The other species are threatening to withdraw from the treaty." Gira answered calmly. "They threaten because they are afraid of change." One of the human envoys turned to Ryan. "You're a soldier, Cole. You understand duty. Tell her she's risking war." Ryan stayed silent for a moment. Then he said, "She's not risking war. She's proving peace means something." The humans left without another word, but Ryan knew what was coming within hours. Gira received a message marked Emergency Level 5. The treaty was breaking apart. 3 races had already left the summit. 2 more threatened to follow if Gira remained in power. The galaxy was splitting down the middle, not because of war, but because of love. Gira stood in front of the large window in her quarters, Stars stretched endlessly before her. Ryan stood behind her in silence. "If I step down," she said, "they may stay." Ryan didn't speak. "If I leave politics," she continued, "they may keep the peace." Still, he didn't speak. Because he knew she already had her answer. "I won't let them rewrite history," Jira said at last. "They want to pretend emotions are weakness, but we've shown them the truth." Ryan finally moved beside her. "And what is that truth?" He asked. "That peace needs something more than signatures." She said, "It needs sacrifice." That night, the summit hosted a final emergency session. All members were required to attend. Jira walked into the grand hall alone. She wore no crown, no robe, only a simple white dress, a symbol of peace and honesty. Ryan stood in the crowd, watching, ready for anything. Jira walked to the center platform and spoke. "I am accused of breaking the law," she said. "I did." "I am accused of bonding with a human." "I did," the crowd murmured, but she didn't stop. "I was taught to hide emotion," she said, "but a human taught me to feel. And because of that, I see now what true unity means." She turned slowly, looking at every species in the chamber. "If that makes me unfit to lead," she said, "then I will step down." Gasps filled the air. Even Ryan felt his chest tighten. But Jira added, "You will have to find someone else willing to die for peace, because I already found mine." She looked directly at Ryan, and in front of 1,000 delegates. She smiled. A silent storm rolled through the hall. Some were angry, some were moved, and a few began to question everything they believed. As the meeting ended and leaders walked out in silence, Ryan joined Jira at the center of the room. "You didn't have to say that," he whispered. Jira looked at him. "But I wanted to," she replied. He held out his hand. She took it without hesitation. And this time, no one dared to stop them. They had stood against tradition, against politics, and against fear. The treaty might fall, the galaxy might break, but their bond, it would hold. They left the summit under heavy silence. Jira and Ryan stepped into the shuttle with no guards, no ceremony. Only a few loyal crew members remained. The rest had been called away or had left on their own. "We lost the vote," Ryan said quietly. As the ship left orbit, Jira nodded slowly. They did not want peace if it meant change. Ryan leaned against the window, watching the stars blur by. "You sure about this?" he asked. "They're going to come for you." Jira turned her golden eyes to him. "Let them," she said. "I am not running anymore." They docked at an outpost's moon called LSR 9. An old place, once used for mining, now quiet and forgotten. Jira chose it because it was neutral ground outside the reach of any one empire. "We'll wait here," she said. "Let the dust settle." Ryan nodded, but something didn't feel right. The air was too quiet, the halls too empty. Even the shadows felt wrong. He walked the corridors alone that evening. Checking every corner, he found doors unlocked, supplies missing, and power systems flickering. Someone had been here before them, and they weren't allies. He ran back toward Jira's chamber, but it was too late. The power cut out, red emergency lights blinked on, and masked figures stepped from the shadows with plasma blades in hand. Ryan didn't hesitate. He drew his sidearm and fired. 3 attackers fell, but more kept coming. "Shira!" he shouted. She was already up, her hands glowing with a strange energy. Ryan had never seen her fight before. Her people were trained in defense, not violence, but tonight, everything changed. The attackers charged. Ryan stood in front of her. Again, a blade cut across his shoulder, but he didn't fall. Jira raised her hand and sent a pulse of energy that knocked the walls apart. The air shook, the lights flickered, and half the corridor collapsed. The last attacker backed away in fear. Jira walked toward him, eyes burning. "You come to kill peace," she said, her voice sharp and cold. Then you meet the storm. She struck once, and the attacker dropped to the floor. Unconscious, Ryan leaned against the wall, blood dripping from his arm. Shira ran to him, her hands shaking. "You're hurt." "Again," she said, voice cracking. "I promised myself I wouldn't let that happen again." Ryan chuckled through the pain. "Not your fault," he whispered. "Looks like your enemies really don't like me." Yura touched his wound, and soft light began to flow from her fingertips. "I'm not supposed to use healing arts on outsiders," she said. "Too bad," Ryan smiled. "You've broken a lot of rules already." Jira didn't smile back this time. "There's one more I have to break." She said, "If I use the soul merge, you may never be the same." Ryan looked at her. "What does that mean?" "It links part of your soul to mine," she said. "Not just bond, not just feeling everything. You'll feel my thoughts, my pain, my memories." Ryan stared at her in silence. Then he took her hand and nodded. "Do it," Skier placed her hand over his heart and closed her eyes. A pulse of light filled the room. His breath caught, and visions filled his mind. He saw her past lonely halls, her mother's cold words. The day she chose silence over love, he saw her future full of war, politics, duty, and then him. He saw himself standing beside her, not as a guard, but as an equal, a partner. Something deeper. When the light faded, Ryan collapsed into her arms. Jira held him tightly, her heart racing. "You're with me now," she whispered. "Truly." "With me." Later, the survivors searched the wrecked base and found the attackers' orders. They had been sent by the Kravari Dominion, a faction that wanted the treaty to fail. Jira handed the proof to the council, and for the first time, they listened. Her enemies had lied. They had sabotaged the summit and nearly killed her twice. But now, the truth was out. Jira stood before the galaxy again, not as a diplomat, but as a warrior. And beside her stood the human who bled for her again and again in the quiet of their ship. Ryan leaned back on the medical bench. His wounds were healing, but his thoughts were still spinning. "You okay?" Sierra asked gently. Ryan looked up. "I saw your memories," he said. "You went through so much. And now you carry some of that too," she said. "I'm sorry." Ryan smiled faintly. "Don't be," he said. "Now I understand why. You fight so hard." Jira stepped close. "And now you don't fight alone," she whispered. In that moment, with the galaxy still watching, they didn't care about war or laws or titles. They had one more battle ahead, but now they would face it together, heart to heart, soul to soul, and nothing would stop them. The galaxy watched as the truth unfolded. The Kravari Dominion was exposed. The poisoning, the assassination attempts, the threats, they were all part of a plan to destroy the peace talks. But the plan failed, not because of armies or fleets, but because one human bled for an alien, and that alien chose love over law. Jira stood before the Grand Assembly once more, but this time she did not stand alone. Ryan stood beside her, not in uniform, not as a guard, but as an equal. There were no titles left to hide behind. No politics to twist her words, only truth. "I was told to follow the law," Jira said, her voice steady. "But when the law stands in the way of what is right, it must be rewritten." She turned and looked at Ryan. "I found peace not in treaties, but in someone willing to die for it." Some delegates looked away. Others nodded slowly. Ryan stepped forward. "I was trained to fight, to protect," he said. "But no training prepared me for this. I protected her, not because I had orders," he said, but because she mattered. The chamber fell silent. Then, one by one, the members of the council stood, not to protest, but to listen, and for the first time, truly listen. Later, back on the ship, Jira sat in her private. Chamber, she no longer wore her royal robes. She wore soft fabric like the people of Earth. Her hair was braided loosely, one side brushed with silver paint, a symbol of rebirth. Ryan entered quietly, carrying a small data pad. "You got messages," he said. "Lots of them." "From who?" she asked. "Some from your people," he said. "Some from Earth. And one from the Andari Empire." Jira raised an eyebrow. "They want to speak to me again." Ryan smirked. "They want to form a new treaty," they said. "If you're leading it, they'll listen." Jira smiled softly. "The galaxy changes fast, especially when someone throws a grenade into old traditions." Ryan joked. She stood and walked to him. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Bonding with me?" Ryan looked at her seriously. "Not for a second." Jira stepped closer. "In our stories, bonds like ours only happen once every 1,000 years. They are not just rare," she whispered. "They are sacred." He touched the side of her face. "Then let them tell stories about us." Weeks later, a new summit was held, not on a military base, not on a rich world, but on Earth, in a peaceful valley surrounded by trees and open skies. Jiro walked onto the platform with Ryan beside her. The new Alliance flag flew high behind them, half human, half Alvareth, woven in gold and blue. Leaders from 10 species gathered, but this time, they did not argue, they listened. Jira spoke clearly. "The old treaty is gone," she said, "but something better can rise in its place." She stepped aside, letting Ryan speak too. "We don't have to understand each other perfectly," he said. "We just have to care enough to try." That simple line was repeated across hundreds of worlds. It became the phrase that changed history. Later that night, under Earth's moonlight, Ryan and Sierra stood outside. The stars shimmered above them, peaceful and silent. "This place is quiet." Yor said, "Too quiet. You'll get used to it." Ryan smiled. "Earth has that effect." She looked up at the stars. "Do you think they'll remember this day?" Ryan nodded. "Maybe not now," he said, "but someday. A child will ask their parents why peace began, and they'll tell them about a human who bled, and an alien who broke the rules, and how they saved the stars." Sierra leaned her head against his shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. Together, Ryan held her close. "Yes," he said. Together, their story became legend. The warrior from Earth, the diplomat from the stars, 2 souls who stood against a galaxy of fear, and chose love, and chose truth, and chose each other, and the stars never forgot.